Welcome back, everybody. I got a little bit of a special treat for you today. We're going to be talking to Jay Brown, who's a tattooer who is senior me by a few years. But from what I understand, he was born in Southern California, and for some reason decided to move up to Idaho, or his parents brought him up there when he was younger. And he's an accomplished machine builder, but these days he's better known for the Northwest Tattoo Museum that he runs out of Northern Idaho. So let's talk to Jay and see what he has to say. Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a little bit of while since I've done this, and I've spoken with any of my, I'll say elders, because I think he's got a couple years on me. Today's guest is Jay Brown. He's a Southern California man who's
Nope.
You were?
I was born there. We moved away when I was 7, so I'm actually in North Idaho for the last 20 years. So
Well, that was part
North
of it.
Idaho.
I was thinking he's a Southern California man, for some reason decided to move to Idaho, and I can't think of anything else other than you like potatoes. But
No, you know what? That's one of the biggest. That is one of the biggest. Okay, so Idaho is basically, there's 3 parts of Idaho. There's the southern half, which is what everybody knows is famous potatoes. I got it on our license plates. I hate it, but my wife won't let me pay the extra money to get something else on the license plate on the cars. And then the third, middle third of the state is wilderness, absolute wilderness. And then North Idaho up here is mountains and lakes. So there's no potatoes up here. We don't.
No.
Yeah,
So
we
you're in
don't
the
have
top part of the state?
Yeah, the top part of the state,
Okay.
Washington border, closer towards Canada ways. So we're in the Rocky Mountains, kind of in the foothills.
Nice.
Spokane, Washington's 35 miles away, so which is kind of a neat deal,
Nice.
being that close to a big city. But Coeur d'Alene is, you got to kind of go through a little pass, and we're kind of in our own little valley or nook there, and then as you go east, you go back in deep into the Rockies, and we're probably an hour and a half tops from Montana too. So we're kind of bordered by 2 pretty cool, like a short span, I guess.
Montana population 6. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
and
I think Adam and Peggy Everett make up 2 of that 6. So
I spent, before we moved here to Coeur d'Alene, which is, I think we're 50,000 population, but then we've got a metro of other cities around. I think it's about 125,000, but that's tiny considering some places. But I was in Moscow, Idaho, where the University of Idaho was for a decade, tattooing college kids. And we I think population without college kids was like 6,000. And, so when school was out, there was nobody. And then school was back in, and then you've got 30,000. And then 9 miles away, there was another university or Washington State University, 9 miles away. So it was college kid heaven. And then I
was going to say, towns like that are a lot of fun if you're in that age group.
And then you get to a certain point, you can't do it anymore. I hit my 40s, and I said, you know what? No, you get a kid in the chair, and they ask you, hey, how old are you? And you tell them, and they go, oh, you're older than my dad. And then you just go, oh man, and it's
that pain factor increased.
Right, hearing that every now and then is not a big deal. Hearing that on an almost daily basis, boy, it just starts to go. You just start to go, wow,
Well, and now we're getting to the point. I think you're just a couple years older than me. We're getting to the point where people can compare us to their grandparents, and that's like, oh, ouch. But you know.
Well, I'm going to be a grandfather in June, which is, so that'll be kind of weird.
Hey, sorry, real quick to interrupt. Jay, is there some music going on in the background there?
Yeah. Is it affecting things?
Yeah, if you could just turn it down a little bit, or that'd be cool.
Yeah, well, thank God that today's a closed day and nobody is tattooing because it's really loud in here with the echo and everything. We just have a thing. RJ had this thing that you never turn off the radio in the tattoo shop because it'll upset the tattoo gods. And then the next thing you know, you got them mad and there's no business.
Now, I take it when you go to a show, then you one of those guys that throws some change on the floor of your booth first when you get there?
Oh man, money on the floor is money in the door.
Yeah.
Light a green candle, that whole thing. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's
those are great traditions that a lot of the younger folks
Yeah.
just don't even comprehend, man.
That's it, and it might just be that. It might just be superstition, but it's like the one that we have is that I've done for a while, and everybody comes to work here. I give them a dollar, a silver dollar, and you put it over the door, or silver 50-cent piece, real silver. The silver dollars oftentimes are just those Eisenhower dollars that aren't silver, but you put that dollar above the door jamb for good luck, kind of thing. So
I have a small frame with my first $25 that I made in my shop when I had opened my shop. Stuck it in a frame. It went up on day one, and it was there till I ended up selling the place. Yeah. Well, when I sold the place, I took it with me because I earned that money. I'm not leaving that behind. But
yeah, that's your dough, man. That's your dough.
Okay, so it's a little bit superstition, but to me, it's more tradition. And I don't put a lot of stock in superstition, but I definitely have a heart for tradition and things like that. So that one walks. Those things walk sort of a borderline, but
right.
And if it's not broke, don't fix it. So
right, exactly. Well, the guy who taught me how to tattoo was an old carny tattooer, and there was no real tradition of anything except for rinsing your needles off and cooking them and reusing them, eye looping them, cooking them and reusing them. I don't think. I mean, he might have had some things, but he really wasn't a big,
At least he rinsed them and cooked them. I mean, because there's a lot of people that didn't.
Yeah. Oh man, it was. But I could tell you some nightmarish stories from the end of the '80s that early '90s till like the advent of the APT and some other things. There was some practices going on out there that were, one I remember was well, I better not get into this because I'll go down a rabbit hole there. We were talking about traditions, but I didn't really pick up, a lot of that in tattoo tradition until I met my tattoo dad, my godfather, RJ Rosini. And he was, he's deep into, he was deep into Native American spirituality and stuff like that. So little tradition things from any kind of other cultures and whatnot that the green candle for money, and smudging the shop out with sage and sweetgrass so that you're getting rid of all the bad energy, and just there's all kinds of things like change on the floor, as money in the door and all that stuff. So I just like you said, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. So
yeah,
and I found
it doesn't hurt
like,
anything for sure.
I literally, no bullshit, have had the guys close at night and turn off the radio as we leave the radio on, and the next day the shop be completely dead, not even the phone ring, and then the next day, then things just click right back into place. And I always say, you left the radio off, didn't you? You didn't keep the radio on, and the tattoo gods got mad. And there's a lot of them in here, or at least that stop by and visit. So, it's like, you never know which one. I imagine that I keep it on the classic rock station because that's pretty much all appease everybody, or at least one would hope, except for what they consider classic rock now. I don't know.
Classics like the stuff. That's the stuff that we listened to in the '80s is now considered classic.
I know.
It's like, whoa.
Blows me away. Blows me away. The radio's on and you're driving down the road and Guns N' Roses pops on and you're like, I remember that album came out. I was in high school, you know.
Yeah. In a few more years, those will be the oldies.
The old, I know. Well, is that what's happened to the 70s stuff? The stuff we grew up on? Is that the
Pretty
old?
much. I think so. What is it? What is it? 25 years becomes classic.
Oh,
Then
yeah.
there's vintage and then there's oldies. So there's a
So
couple
like
more
50,
stages, but
50,
yeah,
50 is the vintage line, or is it?
probably. I
I
don't
know it
know.
with cars, classic cars. I think it's uh, they got to be, well, to be classic, they got to be like 1980 something or older. We have a big car show here in Coeur
Mhm.
d'Alene every year, and with a big cruise, and it's down by the lake, and it's really a cool thing. People come from all over the Northwest, and it's like every year. Some years we enter an old Ford truck that we have, and then other years, it's like, I don't want to bother with it. But every year I always look at the information, and it's like 1981 and older is the classic car, and
Yeah.
I'm going, those are such ugly cars. I mean, after
That's,
75 shit got ugly.
I was gonna say early 70, 72 is about my limit for collectible type of stuff.
Right,
But then you see people get excited about owning an 80 something whatever. And I'm like,
right.
why?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe Harley Davidson's early evolutions or something, motors or something. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
that was 80s.
But
I
not the
don't know,
cars.
but
Mid
not cars. Yeah.
70s. Cars today still don't even have any style. They're starting to bring some back, but yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Ugly.
like back to tattooing, Jay. Like,
Yes.
okay, so you started. I started tattooing in '92. I think you have a few years on me. You were like mid to
Yeah.
late '80s.
86. Yeah.
'86. Okay.
86.
Yeah, I was just finishing up high school then, so so I wasn't like privileged enough at that point, but
Yeah. Yeah. My circumstances were kind of weird. I had a screwed up home life and a screwed up home life and a good education. So I kind of bailed. I got out a little early and got to start on my way. And I fell in love. Like I said, we left California and we moved to Oregon, and I grew up on a horse ranch. So I did my bit of work in my
nice.
life.
Mhm.
We had 250 acres of big hay fields and all that. So every summer, while everybody else was out tubing the rivers, I was baling hay and
But
piling
that
hay
that
stuff.
work
And
ethic helps you so much. I mean,
yeah, a lot.
anybody that stands the test of time in this industry or any business whatsoever, usually has a pretty strong work ethic. So, what was your first exposure to tattooing? What sucked you in, man?
Well, my my biological dad, my real dad, who I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with in my life, but enough, had a tattoo of a dragon on his arm, and it made an impression on me from my earliest memories. And that was something that was like, wow, this is really cool. Uh, just intrigued by it. And then as time went on in life, I mean, just they always kind of interested me, and I was into art at an early age. My grandmother was an incredible artist, an incredible watercolorist, and she spent just decades doing artwork. And when I was young, before we moved to Oregon, I used to go to grandma and grandpa's house on the weekends, just about every weekend. And so my grandmother would be working on artwork every evening. She would devote an hour or two just doing artwork. And so I just sit and she would give me whatever pad of paper and just let me sit there and do whatever she was doing. Um, so that just kind of art kind of clicked with me there. And I give her credit for my art abilities, or at least uh, uh, beyond genetics, I suppose. and then we have to fast forward to about 14, and heavy metal music, and that kind of added to the whole thing. um, the bikers, we always had an interest in motorcycles, so bikers kind of seeing all those folks with tattoos just kind of really intrigued me. And then I did and I think everybody does this at 14 for some reason. I grabbed the needle, the thread, the India ink, and went to town on myself and some neighbor kids, which the needle and thread and all that stuff came from my grandmother's art and sewing supplies. So
Oh,
grandma is still one of
the
the reasons.
enabler.
Yeah, she asked me, she's long past now, but she asked me back in the 90s, she says, why do you want to waste your talent? Why you're so talented, you know, why do you want to waste your talent in tattooing? And I said, Grandma, I don't want to be a starving artist. And she said, I don't want to starve. And that held true, you know, well, I don't know. It's not hard to be sort of a starving artist in tattooing these days, but
Yeah,
you know,
it just depends on the location and
yeah. Well,
and a lot of that.
oh, I mean, I just can't imagine some of these guys in these big cities that are, you know, where there's 100 tattoo shops or 80 tattoo shops, and it's $1,500 a month or $2,000 a month for rent for your studio apartment, and you know, just all the exuberant expenses and whatnot. I could see where a guy could, you know, could not, you know, not quite make it the way we did in the 90s, at least. the one of the heydays, I'd say.
Well, yeah, and everybody in those environments starts to cut prices to be competitive, and it just ends
Right?
up a total shit show. It hurts everybody, but yeah.
We all we don't get paid as much as we should anyways, really. If, like, do you remember in the 90s, I used to have a thing where I always would say that a good tattoo artist's prices should be commensurate to the same rate as a good psychiatrist or psychologist, you know. And at the
Well,
time,
you're doing the work of that.
75 to $100 an hour was, you know, that was a decent price. And then, you know, as the 90s progressed, it seemed like everybody started making their way towards 150 an hour. Man, those guys, those psychiatrists and psychologists are making $200 an hour easy, you know, plus. And it's like, so it's like, wow, you know, we're kind of underpaid, but I think some of that is just because of our passion for art. So
I remember when I was first considering bumping my price, my hourly up to 100. And I was like, oh my God, nobody's gonna pay that. I'm gonna starve. But you know, raise the prices. There was a few people that bitched and went away, and the people that left holes in my calendar for other people to fill that wanted to pay it. So yeah, tattooers are always afraid to raise their rates, I think, more so than anything. So
I think it's commensurate to the market, though. You have to take in consideration the demographics of the area, whether you know, I mean, the average income, the age groups, you know, things like that affect you know, what the economy can bear. You know, we're in a tourist town in the summertime. I mean, we could probably, you know, rob them. We could do, like, I've got some old Papa Joe Dawson sheets, the flash sheets that say on the bottom of them, "We cheat tourists and drunks." And I won't put them up because I really don't want people thinking that, you know.
Oh, I'd hang them right up in the front, man. I know,
right in the flash racks. But you know, that's just you know, kind of a funny thing. But I mean, your market can bear, you know, population versus tattoo shop and, you know, stuff like that. So, like, I always found that people struggle with the minimum thing. You know, what's your minimum? $50 minimum, $60 minimum, $80 minimum, $100 minimum. You know, it's like that's a tough one. We went to $100 minimum. You know,
that's reasonable though, really.
Yeah, well, like, with the cost of what it costs to do a tattoo anymore.
Well, with the time that's involved with setting up and then cleaning up properly afterwards, regardless of the time you're tattooing.
The fact that gloves went from, you know, like 8 cents a piece to 25 cents a piece kind of hikes the price up just a little bit too, you know. But you know, we'll still do a little name for under $100. But I mean, it's like, I picked the $100 minimum thing up. It makes sense because if you don't make $100, you really aren't really making, you know, your money. Is if because if you got to pay booth rent or percentage or whatever it is that you're paying out, you got to cut out a percentage of that one way or another to make your nut for the month. So, you know, if you don't make that $100, you're really not making a you know, like if you're on a 60-40 spread, man, you're making $60. That's not a whole lot for the day.
And I've
For
always
the way a lot
laughed
of
at,
us live. Now, some people that's good money, but for a lot of us, it's like $60. Damn, that's not even enough to go out drinking tonight. But
and I've always laughed at the artists that, you know, in a shop builds up good client base, whatever, and then they decide they're going to go off on their own so they don't have to give up that half of the money. And then they find out later, once they try and open up on their own with all the extra overhead or whatever, for a while they're ended up making less than they were working in a good, busy, profitable shop. As people can't do that math ahead of time. It's funny.
Yeah, it's well, and it depending, you know, I mean, on your overhead and all the other things, and then like I treat my people really good. I mean, I keep the fridge stocked with the, you know, Gatorade and soda and water for the tattooers and the customers, and I keep frozen burritos and pot pies and stuff in the freezer so that because you can't get a meal sometimes.
Right.
And you can spend $1 million getting takeout, you know. So you go throw a Marie Callender's pot pie in the fridge that I buy 8 packs of it at Costco, and then you know, you can eat something real quick and get back to your deal. Rice bowls, all kinds of little things.
Yeah, and it's a bit better for you than the fast food you would get otherwise and pay 5 times for. But
oh yeah, right, exactly.
All us tattooers have pot bellies just from, you know, sitting on our ass all day tattooing, and then eating junk, forcing massive amounts of junk into your gut in that 10-minute break. So,
I quit that a long time ago, and I think well, 2 things I got from the same person, Henry Goldfield. He was the one who this is back in 2000. I got to do a guest spot at his place, which was just like something I was blessed to be able to do. Slept in the back of the shop in a hammock, and the shop manager Dave Bobrick would grab me every other day and bring me over to his house to take a shower so I could hose off. And so that was an interesting experience, but it was a really good one. But that was Henry's deal, was you got to get $100 out of the you know, or it's just not worth it. And then you know, with the eating thing, he was the one who you know, got it in my head that you need to stop and sit down and eat, as opposed to standing there shoveling a hamburger down your throat or whatever. Actually, just sit down and eat. Take a minute and eat. And you know, if you're jam packed or whatever, I've even had my customers say, you know, oh, they just came back with tacos. You want a taco? You know, and we'll stop for a second and eat something. But I don't think it's what am I trying to say? I think it's something that every tattoo artist should get in the habit of doing, but I don't think it's something that catches on with a lot of people.
Well, it's one of those things we know it's not good for us, but we just continue to do it regardless. You know, it just becomes a habit, a really bad habit. But when you're talking about Henry, I you just brought back some memories here. But just think about this: if you have somebody coming in for a guest spot this day and age, and you ask them to sleep in the back shop on the floor
on an army cot,
they wouldn't even. These people want to be put up in 5-star hotels and picked up with Uber or whatever every morning, or whatever. Like, they don't even realize like what we would have done back in the day just to have the experience to be with others. I mean, years ago, I went up to Lyle's place, and I happened to go up there at a time that's what's his name? De Michelle was up there too.
Right, Bill.
And so there was another guest or two in the house, and Lyle and Susie and all that. And I ended up sleeping on the back porch. And the weather wasn't exactly fantastic, and that back porch is not exactly insulated. Now, Lyle did give me an air mattress, which kind of deflated by morning usually, but
yeah, well, that's the kind most of us have around, right?
Yeah, but I mean, that was only maybe 15, 16 years ago in that ballpark, you know. So I wasn't even really a young man at that point in time, but that's something I was absolutely not only just willing to endure, but I was eager to participate in,
Yeah.
just to go hang out for the experience. And you know, and I'm not gonna look back like, oh, ungrateful son of a bitch didn't want to fucking,
No. It's like, holy
no,
shit,
man.
I got to sleep on Lyle's back porch.
Happily, I was happy as could be, so the couch was already taken, the bedroom was already, whatever. I
Yeah,
don't
but
care, man.
here,
I'm gonna live in the
there's a
moment.
tent.
So, but you can't get kids this day and age to, to do that. I've slept on the couch. Hell, I've slept on street corners. So,
Right. I,
it's just enjoying life, man. But people these
I
days won't do that.
No. I was, at being at Goldfields. I mean, you walk in the door and there's all this hand-drawn Greg Irons flash on the wall. So I spent the first, night just sitting there studying every design and just in awe. And and then Henry had great big file cabinets. I think I had 3 or 4 of them. And every file cabinet was all in alphabetical order. And every file cabinet you opened up, and there was a file for dragons, butterflies, whatever. And they were full of line drawings that Henry had done. All these being, some from other people's and whatnot, but they were all, done #2 pencil line drawings of just all kinds of stuff. And so I spent, nights just going through those, looking at all these different, hand-drawn designs from over the years. So it was kind of neat. It was like I said, it's you look back at it and it was a privilege. I mean, I was a lot younger, but in the same respect, that army cot still sucked. The sleeping bag,
Yeah. I would have traded that army cot for a deflating air mattress though, man.
Yeah. 2000 in San Francisco. I don't even know where I would have found one. But and it's funny, I had an aunt and uncle that lived in town there, and I chose to stay at Henry's as opposed to staying with them across the bay, because hey, I got offered an army cot in the back of Henry's shop. But then I've been to guest spots where
now, Jay, we wouldn't be
well,
sitting here talking about your room in the Holiday Inn. That's not a story. Now the army cot in the back,
well, I do have it.
that's
No,
a
I do have
story.
one. I got a story. Well, and then we could get into convention stories from the 90s and hotels.
Oh, geez.
You know what I mean? But I've done a fair amount of guest spots over the years, and I did a guest spot down with Billy Naylor, Colonel Naylor. I don't know if you remember him. He did the Southern Comfort Tattoo conventions.
Know of him, but I never knew him personally.
Yeah. And he did photography and stuff for Tattoo Magazine for a while too. But he had a shop in Memphis, Tennessee, called Memphis Sun Tattoo. And the old man got a hold of me and says, Billy wants you to come down and do a guest spot with him, for a couple weeks. And I lived in Columbia, Missouri at the time. That's where my shop was. I was like, all right, cool, travel, it's great. So, and I'd always enjoyed the conventions in Memphis. It was always a great time. Beale Street is a blast, especially if you like to party all hours.
Not anymore.
Yeah, no, not me neither. I mean, this is, whatever, 20 years ago. Or more. She's 25 years ago. Plus, I mean, it's like, mid 90s. But so we went down, and it was always, never, if somebody didn't put you up at their house, your hotel was at your own expense. Usually, it seemed like to me. But we made so much money back then, it didn't matter. I mean, what do you care?
And hotels were only like $40 a night. So
right. For a real nice one. And so when we get there, he's like, yeah, I got you set up at this there's this real nice hotel that, rents, got weekly rates and all that down the street here from the shop that you can stay at. And it was called the Admiral Bimbo, Bimbo. And we went to check into the place, and it was one of those older hotels. I mean, it had been there for, the 40s. 50s, I imagine, 2 stories with a big courtyard in the middle kind of thing. And it kind of looked a little trashy, but I was like, okay, it's close to the shop. This will be cool. we're not going to be there much anyways. And so we go into, and I had my apprentice with me at the time, and we go in to check into the hotel, and so we pulled in, and I walk in, and instead of there being a front counter or anything like that, there was like where the front counter was, but it was framed out, and there was this big thick door, big thick metal door, and then the check-in area was like bulletproof glass with the little thing in the middle of it, and a little slot for you to slide the paperwork and the money, underneath the deal. And so I'm going, okay, great. Well, it is close to the shop, and all right, it's close to the shop, and we're not going to be here very much, so big deal. Well, unbeknownst to me, my apprentice behind me is in an absolute horror because this really raggedy prostitute is, propositioning him for, oral favors. And so, Ben's just mortified. He's just never, had this going on while I'm checking in. So I just, again, it's close to the shop. We're not going to be here very often. So we go in, and it's the normal, revamped in the 70s kind of hotel room, run down, kind of had a little bit of a musty smell to it. I don't know.
I can imagine.
Probably crack, just permeating from the walls or something like that. So again, it was like, okay, it's not far from the shop. We'll make this work. And so we went to the shop and worked all day, went and had some drinks, went back to the hotel. We're laying in the beds, and we're sitting there talking, watching TV, and all of a sudden I hear Ben brush something, like something touched him, and he just brushed it off. And then he goes, all of a sudden he goes, holy shit. And I'm like, what? And he's like, a fucking cockroach just dropped off the ceiling and hit me on the fucking face. And this cockroach is scurrying down the thing. And I look up, and there are cockroaches back and forth, around all over. And I said, that's fucking it. I'm done. I mean, it was, and all night long, it was like, you could hear the prostitutes and the drug dealers going, and just, it was bad. So that
so
next
you can
morning,
tolerate the skanky prostitutes and the drug deals and the
I kept giving it
gunfire
another
and all that,
chance.
but the cockroaches make you leave.
Cockroaches did it, man. That was it. That was the final straw. I mean, I just kept justifying it. Oh, it's just going to be a little while. It's just going to be a little while. And then finally that was it. So we checked out the next morning. I got a room at the Hilton downtown, right up off of Beale Street, and paid whatever double a night, but I didn't care. It was like, man, no cockroaches, room service, and why I could stumble home drunk from the bars.
I'm probably classier hookers, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
It reminds me of some of the motels I stayed at back in the day, early Inkslinger Balls day, going out to Hollywood, trying to save money, finding the beat up old motels. And
instead of staying at the, what was the name of that hotel?
Was it the Hyatt, I think? No, the Regency? No, oh, wait. The one with the glass elevator was the big one right there at the end of Sunset. We eventually started staying there, but I think in the first couple of years, we tried to get the cheaper motels, man. And
what was the name of the one? I've only heard the story. I've only been to Inkslingers a couple of times, but one year RJ knocked the guy out in the elevator. And then after he knocked the guy out, he took a business card and wrapped $100 bill around it and stuck it in the guy's mouth. I guess the guy was bothering him all night long and just driving him nuts. And he kept telling him to, take a flying leap, and he wouldn't do it. So he just popped him, and that was it. He crumpled, and at least he left him
I was going to say, I wish I met RJ and annoyed him at this point. Jeez.
He actually went to, from what I heard, he went to jail that night, bailed out the next morning. But there were a couple of people. I think Dennis Dwyer was in the elevator with him, and I can't remember who else. When he passed away, Tattoo Magazine did a thing on him, and that was one of the stories that was in there. And it's like, but he was nuts. There was all kinds of fun, crazy stories, but we all have fun, crazy stories.
Early Inkslingers day, downtown Hollywood. Yeah, I've had some encounters, let's just say. So for sure. Good stuff, man. So,
I tattooed the weekend after 9/11 at Inkslinger's Ball.
Okay.
And I had just kind of wild. And I had just in July that year, I had gotten in my really bad motorcycle accident that took my right leg below the knee. So I went to Inkslinger's Ball in a wheelchair.
Well, now I've been
It was
sitting
cool.
here. I've been sitting here saying, God damn it, I can't remember if we've met in person over the years at some point. Because you look
Probably
so
there.
damn familiar. The name is so damn familiar. And we've been friends on Facebook for a long time. But
Right.
I remember that because we had booked airfare because I was based in the Phoenix area at that point when
Right.
9/11 happened. And we had airfare booked but all of a sudden flights were canceled. Everything was crazy. Nobody wanted to fly right then. So we ended up canceling our flights and packing up. I think we got an 8-person passenger van, and I loaded up all of our gear in the back of my pickup truck with the cap on it. And somebody drove that out there, and I took my vet. And we drove to Hollywood that year, which we did a lot of years anyways.
Right.
But but specifically because we weren't going to fly that year, we drove out there. So I mean, I did every Inkslinger's Ball other than the first 2 years. So
Oh, wow.
I'm just
That's cool.
curious if our paths had crossed out there sometime,
Probably
because
there.
I hung out with Dennis out there a bunch, and I mean, Jack Armstrong out there, and
Right.
just all the old bastards. And
year-
so I mean, I can't see how our paths wouldn't have crossed out there, but
Yeah.
I'm not remembering any
Well, I was
wartime stories.
Ever
with you.
was underneath the banner behind me, so
Okay.
underneath the RJ's banner. And that year I would have been too. And actually, you might remember this, but it was Jack Armstrong was to the point where he was in his little rascal scooter, and
Mhm.
I can't remember if in 2001 he was losing, if he was one-eyed Jack yet or not.
I can't remember. Cornfed was taking care of him in that period.
Yeah, Cornfed was taking care of him. And I kept joking with Jack about us racing, me in my wheelchair, him and his scooter. And so I don't know if you remember Sunday, they moved the tables back a little bit. Jack and I goofed off and rolled down the aisleway.
No, I don't remember that, but
There wasn't a whole lot of a ton of people privy to that one, but there was a few, because that year, if you remember, it wasn't a big the convention.
no, it wasn't a big turnout. Yeah, I remember I got pictures of just the other day, or I said the other day, it was a couple months ago at least, but I was digging through a bunch of old photos, and I've got a bunch of photos of Jack doing his last tattoo there at the show. I think it was that show. It's hard because it's hard to place some of these dates and stuff like that, but I have pictures of Jack doing his very last tattoo. Yeah, it's just good times there, man. I mean, that's where I met so many people that influenced me. Catfish Carl and Rick Walters, obviously, like Jack Rudy and Brian Everett, I met there for the first time. All these icons, which I mean, they were icons back then. They eventually became friends. And yeah, no, just the good old days in my mind, but it'll never be like that again.
Yeah, it won't. I'm really feel blessed that I got to do, all the conventions, 100 and some odd conventions that I've done, over my career, because that's where you got to meet a lot of people. And you got to, there was a lot of times that I wound up working more than I wanted to, but hey, you're there to make money and not party. The man was always off at the party, and I was at the booth working, so he'd always get a couple of us to work, and then he'd come and do one or two, and then he'd be at the bar or in the rooms or whatever. But yeah, it was really a neat opportunity. I definitely have to say that I don't know, the 90s into the early thousands was kind of a golden era.
Yes.
Tattoo conventions,
I agree, man.
Too big, because nowadays I think they've just gotten a little out of hand. They're too big.
But there's so many more clients, there's so many more tattooers, there's so many more everything. So it's all scaled up, but I miss the old days, and looking forward to, really only doing a couple shows a year.
Yeah, me too.
And you really longed, you couldn't wait to get there and see your friends and see what they've been up to and all that. Now it's just like, all right, yeah, hey, I'll see you next weekend. You know, it's
Right,
it's it's
right.
it's it got to
Well,
be
yeah,
that bad.
yeah, you could definitely go on the road. You could
Mhm.
probably take a motorhome or whatever and just hit the dusty trail if you wanted to. It'd probably be fun. I've always thought it'd be nice to uh, take up everybody who's offered me a guest spot
Yeah.
for retirement, but who knows how many of those people are going to be alive or if I'm going to be
Well,
alive by the time there is
that
no retirement. So,
that is
uh,
one of my biggest regrets is all the thousands of people you meet and get these invitations to go and sit and guest spot or just vacation
right,
in different regions, different parts of the world or whatever. I don't think I've ever taken one person up on one of those invitations. Like if anything, if I'm driving through town, I'll stop by, maybe try and have lunch with somebody or whatever, but I've never really, I took all those for granted. I just let them all slide
right.
by. So that
I
that's one
try.
of my big regrets.
One thing am trying to do, and I'll get back to do. I started this last year was um, tried to take any opportunity that I had to go see somebody, uh, and I'm starting to try to do that more often, or at least regionally. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, Speaking, there'll be some trips that I want to take that are a little bit further east, I suppose, because I'm pretty far west. But like Wes Grimm said, you got to come out sometime and do a guest spot and all that. And I spent time earlier in my career in Kansas City, and that's where I met RJ and James and kind of got adopted into the family there. And the opportunity to go back there and work at one of the shops that was like Grimm's, I mean, there
Mhm.
was back in the early '90s. I mean, there was Grimm's, there was I think Illustrated Man and East Coast Style, and then there was a couple other little shops, and that was it for Kansas City, Kansas City, Missouri. I mean, it was, so shops that had names were definitely the cool ones, to go to. So um, I guess West had to move the shop down the street a little bit, but um, it it's one of the ones I'm going to take up the offer on. I just see the older I get, the more I'm like, I need to start doing this. And I think it started with um, Lyle's 70th
Yeah.
deal. And I was going to go. I had the plane ticket pulled up on the computer and everything. And I was like, boy, this would be cool to take my daughter to this too. And so I waited, it was late that night, and I went, oh, I'll talk to her and see, the next morning. And I went to, she wasn't able to. I went to get the ticket the next morning, and it had doubled in price. And I was just like, I couldn't. There was just no way I could feasibly do it. And I regret doing that. Not going. I should have shelled out the extra money because I had a place to stay and the car to drive and everything while I was there because of family being there. So it's like after that happened, and then early the next year, Lyle passes away, and it's like,
Mhm.
ah,
Yeah, I regret that one. I had another show, so
yeah,
I had another engagement, and not only did I feel like shit because Lyle was a good friend, and I really wanted to be there, and I wasn't, and everything. And then to make matters worse, turns out he had my name, Dringenberg's name, and a couple other people that had worked on the Giant Jonesy over the
right.
years. He had our names engraved and shit and or whatever, and a
Oh,
little
cool.
placard and stuff like this. I'm like, oh, now I really feel like an ass for not being there.
Right.
But I had no idea. What an honor, and I wasn't present. I'm like, son of a
Yeah.
bitch.
In that same respect, I kind of it's not as grand as that machine, but he had a machine that I had built him that was
Mhm.
somebody had taken a picture and sent it to me and said, check this out, it's your machine. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh wow. And the same thing, I wasn't there. He
Yep.
honors me by putting my one out of all the machines he put on display there, he puts thought about me enough to put one in there. And then I'm like, nah, I
Mhm.
didn't go. But at least I stayed in contact with him,
Yeah.
as much as possible.
Well, Gabe and I
All
were
time
just
is like,
saying, Gabe said, there's probably a 30% chance that you and I had a full night of you know, escapades and drinking, and neither one of us
oh
can
sure,
goddamn remember it at this point in time. But it just, man, we have so many common friends and memories and so many shows we attended. at the same time,
Yeah.
there's no way we couldn't have just, at
Oh
least
yeah, if you
been in the
listen to
same room on a
tattoo
number of
tours or
occasions. So,
I was a tattoo tour for
oh,
I
Dennis's
think
shows. Yeah.
I
Those
did
were my
Dennis and
favorites.
JD's, all of them I
Yeah.
think, and except for one of those, and then I did all of Eddie's shows. Used to do Meeting of the Marked all the time. Which when
Okay.
we were talking about conventions earlier, talk about a convention that is Tim Azinger puts on a great, like the old days convention, a lot smaller, not so insanely uh, oversaturated with artists or whatever. So, oh, that's a glare. Everywhere you go in here, there's a glare behind me. So, anyway,
Did you ever do of any Orlando shows? Rod did the El Paso show for a long time.
no, I
Right around
didn't.
the early
But
2000s.
for Orlando, Orlando's a good line from and all that and before. And I did Orlando apprentice under Bert Rodriguez. He used to go to Tattoos and Blues every year, and that was one of our shows. I did Tattoos and Blues for, I don't know, 14, 15 years running on that one. That was like one of my favorite tattoo conventions. When I got out here on the west side, would do National every year, and I do, this show or that show here and there. And then Tattoos and Blues, and there was another one called Ink Travelers in Vancouver, Washington, and those were my two main, that Nationals rank. Every year I had to do. If I didn't do other conventions, boy, those were ones I had to do. So,
I'm going to rack my brain, man, because
I can't even remember them all.
no,
I know
no
I
way.
did one month. I did one because RJ was all about doing tattoo conventions, and so it was, it was one a month through the 90s.
Well, he was a man ahead of his time for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
I have a showman too, and of course he had, well, and we still had there's Rosini shop in Sturgis during the rally, which was his big claim to fame. And my tattoo brother, another one of his RJ's tattoo sons, Cherokee Chuck Schaefer, him and his wife Chris run that shop all year. It's there all year round. So it's that shop, and then the Implement Dine shop are like the two oldest tattoo shops in Sturgis, going all the way back to the late 70s, early 80s. So kind of a neat thing, but boy, he used to put on a hell of a show. I remember one year we were at Denver, and I can't remember if it was Denver Tattoo Tour. It might have been Denver Tattoo Tour, and he had a big neon that he used at the Sturgis rally. It was we took it to some conventions, and it just got to be to where it was way too much. I mean, it was you can't drag an 8-color neon around with you. But I think it was Tattoo Tour, and he brought the neon. Instead of having the banner, it was the neon. And then, so to make it even cooler, he wanted to have a black and white checkerboard floor. So he had he went to an awning company and had them make a rollout black and white checkerboard floor. And then
I want to say I remember some of that.
And we had the individual stations for each of the two artists, and they were done real nice and painted all black. And then we drove out, brought office chairs, and made it real nice and cushy. And it looked absolutely beautiful. It was gorgeous. And Cherokee Chuck was working with me, and he had his hair dyed pink, and the neon hit his hair just right to where, I mean, it wasn't just kind of it was more of like a reddish, whatever color, but boy, underneath that neon, it was hot pink. So, but the real bitch about that whole thing is as cool as it was those black and white checkerboards were sewed together on top of each other, and so you couldn't move your chair. So you'd go to move your chair and you go, and you try to move back and it'd be, you couldn't move around. All you could do is swivel, and that was it. So
that story reminds me, though. One thing I do miss about the old school conventions was there was sort of like the internal competition going on for best booth, because they did rewards for best booth, and people would go absolutely nuts doing cool stuff. But yeah, I think I remember some of that, maybe from Tattoo Tour, like
Yeah, it
the
was
Seattle
Tattoo
show,
Tour.
or maybe the one at San Diego. There was a bunch of them I attended, but
Yeah, that was Denver, I think. I'm pretty sure it was
Denver
Denver
I
because
did not do. I don't believe.
yeah, we might have taken it to one more, but it got to where it was you had to drive it in a van, and
Mhm.
that's a pain driving a big neon like that and all the other stuff
Oh
was
yeah.
just so then it
Oh, you're
wound up
looking at a
being
guy that drives a 26-foot box truck all around the damn country with a whole damn supply company inside it. So I know what you're talking
yeah
about. It's a lot of
oh yeah
work.
yeah you
So
definitely know the deal. I mean
yeah.
that's the only thing I could say that would be comparative on our end ever was Sturgis because you had to bring an entire tattoo shop uh,
Mhm.
out there every year and enough stuff for all the artists and then build it. And I've got some great stories about that, but we could go on. We could
We'll
use
keep
so
that for
you and I could
next
go on.
time.
We,
So
we could go on forever
yeah,
and ever,
yeah.
but
We should definitely do this again because I want to see the rest of the museum, and I
yeah,
definitely want to talk about some old shows with you again because this is and I've only been through Sturgis one time. That was the year I was moving from the Phoenix area back to Massachusetts. I packed up a specific trailer full of supplies, rented a little spot right on Main Street there, and just sold supplies to the artists that I knew up there.
I bet you did all right
That
doing
year.
that.
I did, and I really kind of intended to go back and do it again at some point, but um, I'm just too damn busy here doing what I'm doing.
Right.
Um, I've never really gone to Sturgis to enjoy the event itself, though. I'd like to try that sometime, but I don't
I
even
did.
ride anymore, so
Yeah, I'm retired. From riding. I don't do it anymore either. I got
yeah.
three good motorcycle accidents under my belt, and I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm through. I was nuts. I lost my leg in the first one. I got run over by a minivan, and then the second one, I broke both hands and wrists and a bunch of fingers and all up and real bad, which is scary. And then all my brothers got together, put the bike back together. Next thing you know, we're back at it, riding again. And then
Amazing how
what did it was
slowly we learn.
I got hit 200 feet from my house, and that's
Jesus.
what did it. And I was doing like 19 miles an hour, and the lady was doing like 35, and it split my head open, and it broke my prosthetic leg. If I hadn't had the carbon fiber shell on the damn thing, it would have broke my leg, you
Hmm.
know, would have broke my leg in half, and just really did a number on the bike. But then I had a short dilemma, and then I said, you know what, that's it, I'm done. I'm through. I got enough years in and 20 Sturgises and all that, but all the Sturgises were work. And then this last year I went to go see everybody, and it's not the same animal in any means. It's changed so much that it's not even. I mean, it's crazy. The
It's
wife and
just
I have talked
money
about the tax.
commercialized. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just doesn't have that old school feel that it used to. The it's we used to joke about all the rubbies and the people trailing their bikes in and all that, and you know would get all gruff, and now Sturgis is old school and all that, and now it's like there's all types of people that go. There's a lot of that part, but I mean the town itself has changed to accommodate the masses and everything. These great big they've mowed down spots and put in these great big massive buildings that have 20 bars in them and 3 stages and just all kinds of stuff,
Hmm.
and then there's like iconic places that are gone, now. I think the Roadkill Cafe is gone, which was a iconic, spot in Sturgis, and the Broken Spoke Saloon is gone, downtown. Now they have a campground now that you can go out to the Broken Spoke campground, but it's not, um, not downtown anymore.
Mhm.
But downtown isn't the attraction anymore either. You got all these different campgrounds, and people don't even have to leave the campgrounds. It used to be if you wanted to do anything, you had to go to the grocery store, liquor store, whatever. You had to go into town and then
Yeah, I
go back
stayed at the
out.
Buffalo
Now-
Chip, and it was like set up a tent for the first like night or two, but it rained so bad. So you were just sleeping in a giant cow patty mud puddle. And so I was towing my trailer, and I ended up just sleeping on the hard floor of my box trailer.
Yeah.
because I was like, you know what, it was way more
Oh, it
pleasant.
gets
So,
the weather gets crazy there. I've seen a tornado touchdown, no bullshit, touchdown at the end of Main Street and pick back up. I've been one year I remembered hailstones as big as golf balls, and I mean just screwing up bikes and whatnot. Every year it seemed like there'd be a torrential rainstorm that would come down like that, and you'd be on Main Street sitting in the tattoo shop, and you'd walk out front, and there'd be this much water on the sidewalk, and you look at the bikes backed up against the curb, and there's water rolling up over the primary covers and up over the backs of the transmissions. It's so deep, and then the next thing you know, the sun's out and shining, and yeah, Sturgis was a treat. But we went back this year, and we had more fun in Deadwood than we did in Sturgis.
hmm.
It was nice seeing a few people, but as far as the rest of it goes, it was just like, it's not the same.
Well,
Doesn't
that
have
you've
that
done it a
old
thousand
school.
times too. So
Yeah, but it was different. I always knew I was going to go back sometime at some year and go do it and see it, and it just wasn't what I expected. So
well,
yeah,
I'm sorry you were disappointed, man, because
well, it's all right. I might go back this year again. So
I'm
we
sure it's
missed a
still a
bunch
good
of
time. It's just different.
Well, to see everybody is the thing. To see all the guys, because there's only a couple of guys from the old crew that still work the shop, and then of course there's a bunch of the new, there's a newer generation of guys working the shop too, but they're all cool cats. So
Mhm.
it's fun to hang out with them. And then the scragglers, as I call them, Judy Parker still has a shop out there every year, and Jazzy Jeff.
Jazzy Jeff, I'm sure,
Yep,
right? You're
he's
familiar
still
with him,
there.
those guys. Yeah, yep.
Yep. Jazzy Jeff's still there. I think he's the only one. There might be one or two other guys that were with his crew, and I can't remember off the top of my head. I think there was two guys from the old days that were there, and that was it. I mean, it was like a rare smattering of people, and then everybody else was new faces and new tattoo shops, but
Well, it's
it's the
hard
way
work, man. It's like
way of the world.
14 days straight of what,
11.
18-hour days, and just
Yep. We
it's
tattooed 14
brutal.
hours a day for 11 days straight.
Yeah, it's brutal.
And they still do it.
Yeah.
And how the hell Chuck does it at 60? I think he just turned 60 or 61. I have no idea how he does it anymore. Actually, he told me this last year that he's just going to come in, do a few tattoos, and then go home because he lives there, so he can just hop on his bike and go home.
Nice.
I said, well, shit, that's what you've been working all the years for. It's that's what we put the time in for. So, you know, nothing wrong with that. Make all the young guys work.
All right, man. I think we've been going for an hour and a half, hour 45
geez,
minutes
that's a
now,
long
man.
time.
That is crazy. So, but I do want to do this again. Let's cut this one. We'll call this short.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
cut this one short, and then we'll come back and do this again, man. I'd like to see the rest of the museum and
Oh, yeah.
definitely swap these stories because, man, you're just you're helping me revive certain brain cells that have
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
like, fallen to the wayside. Like you're bringing back memories, some of these names and stuff. It's just,
Yeah.
it's awesome. I could do this just for days and days.
Oh,
So,
yeah. We could go on for hours.
yeah.
The battery died on my phone, so we know we went on for a while.
But it's all good,
maybe-
man. I want to say I hope you recover well from your surgery and you get
Yeah,
back
we're
on
doing all right.
your feet here full time on a regular, pretty soon.
Oh, I can't
but,
wait to get back to building tattoo machines and tattooing, and then of course working on the ongoing, forever going museum project. But maybe next time when we do this, I'll just keep the camera on front and just kind of walk around and point the camera at stuff while we talk about the old days. And then that way we get both done at the same time.
There you go. I mean, or we'll figure it out, but we'll spend less time rambling and more time focusing on
right,
what people might be interested in rather than two old bastards swapping old stories.
They're talking, you have to tell them war stories. And we didn't even get into any war stories, really.
Oh, no. Well, we can't because those will incriminate us, man.
Statute of limitations has run out on all kinds of stuff.
I hope so, man, because
at least the
if not-
convention stories, there's been a couple of convention stories that are funny. One of them that's in Eddie's books about him and I smoking a joint in a bar. So, you could tell
you can
those
pretty much
stories,
do that
right?
now, though.
Well, some places, yeah, some places you can. 35 miles from here, or less than that, the border. But hey, we're in one of those states that'll be the last ones to ever allow that. I don't know. They got
Yeah.
medical on the ballot, so
See what happens, man. The world it's
Yeah.
changing, so
yeah,
we'll see. But I'll let you get back on with your day, sir. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate the tour,
yeah.
and
Thank you for having me on.
I can't wait to do it again, man. To be honest with you,
Yeah,
thank you so much, and have a
yeah.
good
Thank
one.
you. You too.
Let me smile and think of something witty to say.